the Whatever podcast, coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host and moderator, Brian Atlas. A few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer-supported. Heavy YouTube demonetization, so please consider donating through Streamlabs instead of soup chatting, as YouTube takes a brutal 30% cut. That's streamlabs.com/whatever. Link is in the description. We prioritize messages that are made via Streamlabs. To read a message is $199, or excuse me, not $199, $200 and up, $199 and up. We will read those in batches at various breaks throughout the debate. There will be no instant TTS, and I do ask that the audience has good discipline when it comes to the super chats and the chats. And if you want to criticize, attack the idea, not the person. Now, if you want to just tip and have 100% of your contribution go towards us, no platform fees, no cut, you can via Venmo or Cash App, whatever pod on both. The link is in the description. We're also live on Twitch right now. Pull up another tab. Go to twitch.tv/whatever.
Gonna be just taking some notes,
Prime
man.
Sub if you have one. Quick disclaimer, the views expressed by the guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the Whatever channel. Without further ado, I will introduce our two guests. I'm joined today by Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. He's a blood sports debater and political commentator. Also joining us today is Naima. She's a senior at University of Southern California. She's a political commentator and content creator. The topic today is feminism. You'll each have up to a 5-minute opening statement, and then the rest of the show will just be open conversation, possible prompt changes, and we're going to have breaks for messages from the audience. Andrew, you're going to go first with your opening statement, so please go ahead.
Yeah, so
here we go,
my
guys.
position on feminism is that it's terrible for society. As we go through this, I'll kind of flesh that view out using what I call force doctrine so that you can understand why I have that same set. But force doctrine basically just states that while feminism definitionally is the movement towards egalitarianism and equity for the removal of patriarchal systems, that feminists will always have to appeal to patriarchy in order to try to remove patriarchy, which is ironically hilarious. But a few things I wanted to get to first is that I went through several hours of my opponent's content, and I've actually not ever seen her make a single argument for anything that she believes. I've seen her assert a lot of things, but not an argument for anything she actually believes. So I have some notes here, and I was hoping she could help me clear some of these things up. From the Surrounded September 8th, 2024 episode, she says abortion is murder. The prompt is abortion is murder and should be illegal. She asked for a viability time for 20 weeks and thinks abortion before 20 weeks is acceptable. She says the fetus is technically classified as a parasite.
Damn.
The fetus cannot exist outside of the womb and therefore is a parasite.
Imagine the fact that you have to die in that hill, man. Deleting kids parasites, man. That's
The actual definitions don't support this. An organism living in, on, or with another organism in order to obtain nutrients, grow, multiply. That would be an actual definition of a parasite, or someone or something that resembles a biological parasite living off of, being dependent on, or exploring another. Fetuses can't fit that definitionally. Fetus is the same species. Biological parasites are classified as other, not the same species. Also, mutual biology. Mothers and fetus co-adapt, and mothers are actually healthier while they're pregnant, so they can't really be a parasite. Parasites are rarely temporary, and fetuses are, and none of that fits the criteria for a parasite. On our video, Middle Ground, Progressives versus Moderates, and this is from January 19th, she says the prompt is, does the far left make Democrats lose elections? She said Kamala was not progressive enough, not far left enough. She talks about how women's rights are being stripped, but didn't give any examples of what those are. So I'm actually really confused about a lot of her positions, including her rematch against Charlie Kirk. That happened March 5th, 2025, why DEI is unlawful. Her rebuttal to Kirk was bizarre. It just had something to do with there's no racial factor in DEI, even though Kirk gave a pretty good rebuttal for that. So I'd like her to kind of dive into what she actually believes within the paradigm of feminism. But for my positive position, I will say I have a logical argument called force doctrine, and my logical argument called force doctrine refutes the feminist ideology, and it just works as I explained before, that patriarchy must always be appealed to in order to try to eliminate patriarchy. Women can't enforce their own rights collectively, and men can. Therefore, women always have to appeal collectively to men for their rights. So you're always going to essentially have a patriarchy through forced doctrine, and there's nothing women can do about that. So I'm willing to logically go through that and have it examined rigorously, but I'm hoping that with that, you can also describe your positions so that I understand them better.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
go.
If you'd like to give your opening statement.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I do think that that is an interesting claim that I don't, state my arguments, because I've actually been watching some of your content, and I've noticed kind of a similar trend as well within these debates, where you will ask your debater questions, but will not put forth your argument, including in your opening statement. You state forced doctrine, but instead of elaborating on it, you consistently talk about what I've talked about, which only one of those topics was actually related to feminism.
I think it's the Finkel Donkey Show saying they're not sure where you are in your live stream, but at one point they argue about the forced doctrine. Neither of them get what, meaning like neither of the feminists, because Andrew is very strong on this topic though.
Now, when it comes to
He's
my
very
actual
strong on that
beliefs,
topic.
I think my goal and my hope for this country is to see us advance as a society. I would like to see everyone have bodily autonomy, and I would like for the vast majority of people, if not everyone, to have their basic needs met. And I would like to mitigate any unnecessary conflict between the citizens of this country, genuinely. I think that my main issue with the manosphere and with your forced doctrine principle is that it promotes...
And you're saying that forced doctrine has nothing to do with men and women right of control. Still, though, it still comes down to who's stronger. Even let's say that forced doctrine can get to women's, right? Still, men will be stronger.
And spreads divisiveness against men and women. It promotes and spreads violence against men and women.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a hard...
focuses the differences
hard,
between the genders.
argument
I think
to go
that
against
men and
it. It's
women,
very hard.
I mean, I don't think I know.
There's a reason
men and
that
women
why
are
they
the same
can't-
species. We are 99% genetically similar, and the obsessive
So
need
made
to
us a
define and
rebuttal.
separate people based on one singular chromosome is doing both men and women a disservice, socially, economically, and politically, which we can get into. I'm ready to open it up if you want to.
That's it?
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess actually I'd love to start with a question for you. I would like to go back to the forced doctrine theory, if we can. I just kind of want to understand more. I know you've talked a lot about the equal force objection in the past. You've said men have essentially a monopoly on force.
Correct.
If I'm correct. Okay, perfect.
Do you want me to walk you through the argument?
No, I'm going to elaborate. Thank you. And that rights exist through physical
There you go.
force.
There you go.
And that our legal system
There
is
you
based on
go.
physical force. So I guess I kind of just
Passive-aggressive
want
as
to hear
fuck.
you elaborate on that now, if you're welcome.
So you want my argument for the force doctrine?
Yep.
Okay,
let's hear it.
so what force doctrine is saying is very simple. That feminism, if you at least agree with my definition, and it seems broadly feminists do,
Yeah.
that it's a movement towards egalitarianism and equity and the removal of patriarchy. If you can't have an oppressed class without an oppressor class, at least not from the Marxist feminist view. In the case, if women are being oppressed, they're not being oppressed by wolves, they're being oppressed by men, right? So if that's the case, then my argument to them is that whatever you believe this oppression is, you will actually have to appeal to men in order to either relinquish whatever this oppression is, or concede to whatever it is that they want, because collectively women actually cannot overthrow any patriarchal systems. They rely on the force of men. And so if men, anytime they want to, decide to remove women's rights, there's actually not anything women can do about it, but the opposition is not true. The opposite is not true. Women cannot collectivize and take away men's rights.
Okay, so are you essentially saying that women do not deserve the right to fight for their own
That's
free
an
will or
ought
have
claim.
free will?
Yeah, that's an ought claim. I'm not making an ought claim. I'm trying to get us to the descriptor first. So
Okay.
instead of making a prescriptive statement, I'm starting with a descriptive statement. What is true, and then we can worry about what should be true after we can determine what is true.
Okay, but I'm trying to see, like, structurally, how does that work in the real world? Are you saying that women should not fight for their
No, I'm
rights
not- I'm not.
because...
So Wacko Mind saying that feminism is a range of socio-political movements and ideologies that aim to define and establish the political, economical, personal, and social equality of the sexes. I mean, yeah, you can cover that inside the word of feminism, but I can say the same thing on masculinism, right? I can say all that stuff for the same thing on masculinism. The problem is that if you want to achieve that, it seems like you have to achieve it by undermining men, by putting men down, right? And that's what we see in the system, because if you really want to achieve that, you will not see the problem that we have with the courts and the political process that we have now, where females are being favored on this, you know? And even in some situations where murder, right? I mean, deleting people, females tend to get a less sentence than men for even the same crimes. So that doesn't seem like feminism is helping to even equate that. It's not. So we can just
Let's
go
back up
over
so I
on
can
that. You know?
Distinguish two things.
Okay.
Make sure you guys like
Ought,
and share the
right?
the
So I'm
stream.
not trying to bridge the is-ought gap. I'm trying to start with a descriptive claim. So if the descriptive